But as I've written quite a bit on this notion of what about plants question. But people come up to you and ask that question, and a lot of animal advocates get very defensive because it's often asked in a sarcastic way, or in a way in which you feel that your position, your moral position, is being denigrated. Think about this: if somebody really if somebody really is not engaged or doesn't want to engage you, and they walk up to you and they say, "Why aren't you eating the steak?" and you say, "Because I have a moral issue with consuming animal products. I don't eat steak." If they really don't care, they shrug their shoulders and say, "Well, that's more for me," and they walk away. I mean, they don't engage you. Somebody who comes up, I almost always assume that. Well, no, I don't always. My default position for Rule 3. Rule 1, default position, people are good at heart. Rule 2, default position, people are not stupid. They can understand the vegan message, despite what these organizations tell us, that people will never be able to understand the vegan message. You have to sort of feed it to them in incremental happy meat bits. And principle number 3, your default position should be anybody who's talking with you about the topic wants to, and is seeking a way to get into it with you that will not unduly disrupt that person's comfort level. That's an important thing. I mean, you've got to make sure when you're having these discussions with people, which can be very intense. I mean, the conversation I had with the person at Whole Foods yesterday was pretty intense. But I believe that for the most part I can pull off that sort of conversation because of principle number 1. I believe she's good at heart. Principle number 2, I believe she's not stupid. And principle number 3, nothing she says is going to get me to react. I will respond to what she says, but I'm not going to react to what she says. Now, she didn't say anything that was sarcastic or rude, and people often do. And people will often get defensive. And they will get rude with you. And don't respond by getting defensive as well, because then that just makes the conversation sort of spiral downward. Understand that we are confronting an entrenched behavior that has so many cultural roots to it that when you are talking with someone about veganism, what they may be hearing is, they're thinking about Thanksgiving dinners with their grandmother who died last year, and how much they loved her, and how you're spoiling that memory now, and things like that. I mean, you're talking about a cultural about an activity that is so woven into our day-to-day experience that it should not surprise us that when we discuss this issue with people, we get the silly, the sarcastic and sometimes the rude responses and things like that. And people say things to us that we think we interpret as denigrating our moral position, and maybe they are intended to do that. But always remember, if the person really didn't, if the person wasn't engaging you on some level, they would just walk away. And now, are there some people who are just loutish and nasty and rude, and you're never going to get anywhere with them? Yes, there are. But the default position should be that somebody says to you, or gives you a catch-a question. What do your dogs eat? Well, they're vegans. I mean, they are vegans. And however, I always say, but I have friends who have cats. I have very, very committed vegan friends who have cats, and I've never lived with a cat. And I don't really understand, I don't know. I mean, the dogs prosper on a vegan diet. They absolutely love it. And our dogs are very, very healthy, and they live to be ancient. They get to, and we adopt dogs that have health problems in some cases, and we've had tremendous experience with using vegan diets in terms of really increasing their longevity, keeping them more active, and things like that. And so, rotting flesh, I don't think is really very good for anybody. But I have friends who have cats, and these are committed vegan people. These are people who don't eat, wear, or use animal products. These are people who devote a lot of their time and energy to vegan outreach and vegan advocacy. They don't. I don't mean, when I say vegan outreach, I don't mean the organization Vegan Outreach, which I don't even consider to be a vegan organization. I consider it to be a flexitarian organization, but they're engaged in vegan advocacy, and they have cats that who have had health problems on vegan diets, and they're really frustrated, and they end up feeding their cats some animal products. Now, do I think that that's a good idea? No, and I confront that when people ask me what my dogs eat, and I say they're vegans. But if what you really want to get to is, would I feed my dogs meat if it were absolutely necessary? And the answer is, it would be a hell of a horrible thing for me, and I would not think it was morally justifiable. But I don't know. I don't know what the answer is, because we've created this nightmare called domestication. We've created a nightmare called, we have a nightmare of domesticated animals. And what are we going to do with them? I mean, it's not morally acceptable to sort of say, well, to hell with them, let them starve, or I'm going to throw them outside and let them starve. And if they do well, they do well, and if they don't, they don't. I don't think that's an all right option. I'm not happy about the option of feeding cats cat food, meat cat food. I'm not happy about that. I don't think it's morally justifiable. It may be morally excusable. There's a difference between saying something's justifiable and saying it's excusable. It doesn't mean it's right. It means there are situations where we don't really have a good choice. There are situations where we don't really have a good choice. If I were on a desert island and there were absolutely no vegetable products around, would I, after a period of time of starvation, if there were only animals to eat, would I kill and eat an animal? And the answer is, I'm sure that I would. But if I were on a desert island with a human being, and there were no vegetables around, and there was nothing around to eat, nothing, absolutely nothing around to eat, would I kill a human being to survive? And the answer is, well, it's a pretty disgusting thought. But then again, so is eating a rabbit. But would I kill a human being? And the answer is, well, people have done that, and they do that. Is it justifiable? No. Is it excusable? In other words, is it a wrong thing? But we understand why you do it. And the answer is, yeah. When you're starving to death, you do things like that, and because you don't really have a good choice. You have the choice of either starving to death or killing someone. Well, do I think it's a good idea? No. Do I think it's justifiable? No. Do I think it's excusable? Yes, I do. If in fact there are no other choices, because sometimes you're just in a situation where everything, because of the situation you've been placed in. So similarly, those people who live with cats, oftentimes people ask me that question, what do you do about, what about vegan, what about feeding cats meat? And I always ask them, are you vegan? And many times they say, no, I'm not. And I say, well, then what the hell are we talking about your cats for? You can make, you can survive, you can prosper, you can be really healthy on a vegan diet. Why are you choosing to continue to eat meat for no good reason, or dairy for no good reason, honey for no good reason, whatever? Why are you continuing to consume that stuff? Let's not worry about your cats, let's worry about you. Or let's not worry about cats as a general matter, let's worry about humans who can make choices. So the catch of questions, they're there. But people, you shouldn't interpret that. You shouldn't interpret the catch of questions as hostile. People are trying to sort of see what your moral principles are, and one way that people test moral principles is in this way of asking you questions to see how far your principle goes, because there's a tendency to think that if you don't know where to draw the line, then your principle is too open-ended and meaningless. That's wrong, and we need to show people that that's wrong and that they recognize that that's wrong. Okay? All right. And when people come up and say, what about the screaming lettuce and things like that, again, is it annoying? Sure, it's annoying. It's extremely annoying. But people are not comfortable. They're not comfortable. They're trying to find a way to discuss it with you, which will diffuse the tension. And they wouldn't be making the comment in 95% of the cases. They wouldn't be making the comment that you're interpreting to be sarcastic. They wouldn't be making the comment if they really didn't want to engage you. They're trying to figure out a way to get in.